Hello, Keith here. We're at Math and Games. Today we're doing MBT by GMT Games. I'm doing the third scenario. Last video I went over the basic American setup. In this video I'm going to go more into the basic American setup and the contingency plans I have for each possible entrance area that the Soviets might take. I'm also going to go over how I'm going to randomize the way the Soviets enter the game, and I'm going to show the contingency plans that the Americans have for where the Soviets enter. Now over here on the left, I'm going to randomize. I'm going to roll the dice, and the top route, now we're doing command span. The Soviets, because they have an oversized unit, all units have to be within 6 hexes of its command vehicle. If the Soviets don't have all units within 6 hexes of its command vehicle, only half the units can do short halts or moves. So I try to maintain that command. So I'm going to roll a 10-sided dice. 1, 2, or 3, the route is going to be up here on the north. The command vehicle is initially going to set up on the back side of this hill, and then they'll move into the trees and they're going to proceed that route. On a 4, they're going to go down the main road. This road right here, this paved road, that's the most risky because that's where I have all my defense. That's where the defenses for the Americans are set up. On 5, 6, or 7, I'm going to put the command post right in the middle of the city over here, and I'm going to let the other Soviet units span out from there. Remember, they can be within 6 hexes of this. Span out from there, and I'm going to use that to stage, because the Soviets have to enter in a 2-turn process. Only 20 units can enter on the first turn, the rest have to enter on the second turn. So that's the third option, and the fourth option is I go down south. I set up command post, Soviet command post in one of these hexes over here, one of these woods hexes, light woods, and then I just travel down south. Now the Americans are set up in this woods right here, and at the moment the southern flank is not defended. So if the Soviets do head down south, what I'm going to do is immediately send, I have a Abrams tank platoon with 4 vehicles. I'm going to immediately send them down south to cover that flank. And I have a recon unit over here forward. It's the most forward unit. It's going to, right now it's facing the road, but it's going to switch to face the south. And these units over here, these recon platoons, are also going to face south, actually come over here to the headquarters area. So that's what I'm going to do. Also, if the attack is coming from the south, I'm going to switch the position of my command track, and it's going to switch with the position of the Bradley. Where the Bradley is facing south, the command track is in a more protected position. I'm also going to move the M106, which is an indirect fire weapon and AA weapon. I'm going to move it into a more position where it's more protected. So if the attack comes from the north, I'm going to have to switch my headquarters location. So if the attack comes from the north, I have 2 lead tanks in the town that's furthest back near the west edge of the board. Those 2 tanks are going to fire covering smoke into a hex that's on the road that should block any fire. And then I'm going to take my command vehicle, and it's going to change position to, there's a hill, there's a northernmost small level 1 hill with a bunch of woods. That's going to be its new location. I've actually marked that. You look at the NATO symbol in 2, that's the secondary location where my headquarters platoon is going to set up if the attack is coming from the north. And incidentally, I do have a 3rd backup position for the headquarters, and that's going to be right next to the east-western border in the town of, right above the town of Alpha 1, the westernmost town. And those are my positions that and my dispositions that I have for the Americans. Now let's look at the Soviets. All right, so here we have the Soviet setup. So Soviets have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 platoons. They have 5 tank platoons, each with T-80 BVs. They have 3 motorized infantry platoons, each with 3 BMP-2s, and each of those BMP-2s have a motorized rifle squad. They also have 1 recon unit, a BRM-1. Now the BRM-1 has ground-based radar, so the ground-based radar within 20 hexes is able to see any leg unit, even if no matter what terrain they're in. Of course, it can't see through woods, but it can see into woods. And even if they're in full cover, it sees them. It can see army units up to 70 hexes away. And I have my command platoon. And the command platoon consists of a T-80 BV, Bravo Victor, and then 3 2S1s. Now the 2S1s have a capability of indirect fire, so they're going to be very, very valuable. And I can have the recon platoon spot for them. I can also have, well, it would have to be the recon platoon, would be the only recon vehicle, would be the only vehicle that would be able to spot for them. And possibly, I think the engineers might be able to spot. I have to look that up. And of course, the headquarters units can spot for the indirect fire. I have engineers. The engineers can lay down some smoke. They can blow up buildings. And I think they're halfway decent in close assault. And so those are my Soviet units. Now, I'm doing staggered initiative. So the way it works is NATO rolls, high roll gets to activate one of its platoons. Then NATO rolls, high roll gets to activate one of its platoons. So the Soviets have 11 platoons. The Americans only have 4 platoons. Now the Americans will have more commands than just 4 commands, because you can give different commands to different units in a platoon, although usually you wouldn't do that. So what I did, I'm going to have the Soviets enter. They're going to have 2 tank platoons come in. Then they're going to have one of the motorized infantry platoons come in to solve any problems. Then I bring that recon unit in. That recon unit is key because it has the ground-based radar, but it's just 1 vehicle. Then following that, I'll have another tank platoon come in. Then after that, I will have the Soviet headquarters platoon. Now, I want to protect that Soviet headquarters unit, because if they lose that, from that point on, no more than half their commands can be movements or short halts. So what is the range of, so that headquarters unit can move 8. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's going to take 2 turns for that. So I can move right up there. Let's go right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it can be at the first level of that hill if it's entering from the north. And then its other units can go 6 hexes beyond that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So they can get all the way, its support units can get all the way up to the top of the hill if they have the movement rate, but they don't. 1, 2, 6. Okay. So that's if I roll 1, 2, or 3. Now, if I roll, and the remainder the way the units enter. After the headquarters unit, I have the engineers coming right after the engineer platoon. Then they have 2 more platoons of armor. Then at last I have 2 more recon platoons. And that's the order they're going to enter the board. Now, in the first turn, I can have 20 vehicles enter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So that first turn, 20 units, I can get, that first turn I can have lead off with 2 tank platoons, motorized infantry platoon, then the recon unit, then another tank platoon, then a headquarters unit. The following turn, the engineer platoon will enter, 2 more tank platoons, and then last 2 more motorized rifle platoons. And all those have to remain within 6 hexes of the Soviet headquarters. Okay, so that's it for just going over things. Now the rules I'm using actually using quite a few of the optional rules now. I'm using all basic and advanced rules. I am not using the morale or cohesion rules yet. I'm using the bog rules. The bog rules basically say if you're in the woods and you want to move, you have to roll to make sure you don't bog. Now, quick draw. Americans have higher quality troops. The Americans have veterans troops. Soviets have seasoned troops. The Americans have +20 to their initiative die roll modifiers. And they also have quick draw, where 2 units happen to come. If the Soviets are moving and the Americans spot them, or the Americans are moving and they spot the Soviets, the Americans get a chance to fire quicker. I have ground-based radar, as I explained. I have small turrets. Small turrets, there's some vehicle with small turrets on them, and they just get a special roll to see if the turret is hit or the hull is hit. Staggered initiative, I explained. Variable track damage. Variable track damage makes it less easy for GP fire to cause loss of tracks. Limited spotting. There's a table, there's a spotting table. Let me pull it up. All right, here, let me go over here. Okay, there's a spotting table. Up to half range for the Soviets, they have to roll a 70 or less. From half range to maximum range, they have to roll a 50 or less. For the American, it's 80 or 60 or less. Each Soviet unit can only have 3 NATO units spotted. Each NATO unit can only have 4 Soviet units spotted. And I'm probably going to use spot removal too. I'm adding an awful lot, but I'm going to look at spot removal. I might add that too. Okay, so let's see what else we have. What are the rules? Okay. I have recon units. Recon units are better at spotting. They also can call in indirect fire. Went over engineer units. Weapon sight modifiers. Now this is actually part of the advanced rule. It's not an optional rule. I just haven't been using it. I've basically been overlooking it. But weapon sight modifiers right here. All right, so depending upon the type of sight that you have, so most of the, at point blank range, it doesn't matter because optical, point blank range, you're not going to get a modifier. But if you have a laser sight or a ranging machine gun sight or a stereo sight, which I think we have some units with laser sights, there's a modifier for short, medium, long, and extreme range. So some other rules we're using are NATO target acquisition bonus. NATO gets a bonus if they fire at a unit and then fire at a unit in the following turn, because they have a quicker ability to reload and to adjust, I guess. We're also going to have indirect fire for the first time. And I am going to do limited spotting. All right, so let's look at something here. Oh, yeah, turn order. Let's go to chart B. Let's go over here. So this is the advanced sequence of play. So you have the spotting phase, you have the command phase. I'm not doing disrupted communications yet, although I think that's going to be interesting. We're going to do the determine available commands step. Then you place commands, so that's the command phase. Then the initiative phase, we roll for initiative. Then you have the combat phase. You have the indirect fire combat, and then you have the direct fire combat. And then you have the movement phase. Within that is close assault hand to hand and movement overrun. Then you have the adjustment phase. We're not using the turret rules. We are using advanced visualization rules. Morale counters and adjust, remove counter stuff. And that's it. So let's take a look. Anything else I want to go over before we start playing? The advanced spot removal marker. So I'm going to go a little bit slowly because I've added a lot of new things here. Night fighting range, night fight. Okay. So S, before I was using for levels, there's vehicular vehicles, there's L for large, and there's S for small. I thought L was for leg units. It's not. It's more some towed units will be in the L column. Leg units in general, unless it says otherwise, are small. They're very hard to hit. Okay. I'm not using turrets or button up yet. Disrupted communications. Eventually, I do want to try that. Try that out. It might be interesting, but not right now. Okay. And a lot of these right here are indirect fire charts. That's going to be new. So called indirect fire response. If you try to call in indirect fire, you may not get a response. All our units are attached, so it's a little bit easier to get response. Recon unit needs a 6 or above. A company headquarters needs a 5 or above. We don't have any battalion or regiment units, and I don't have any forward observers. What's interesting, if you roll a 1 when you're trying to call indirect fire, it's a no response. And if you have any units within 5 hexes of the target hex, then one of those units is targeted instead. Fire response modifiers, pre-registered point, observer recon company I don't have. Adjusted fire, you can adjust indirect fire from turn to turn. It's +1 to actually have that go through. Okay, and observer grade. There's a weapon sight. Now unit grade modifiers. Now before when I was playing, we just had seasoned units. Now we have veteran. The Americans, the NATO's are veteran units, so they have adjustments to their AP, GP fire for levels greater than point blank. Point blank, there's no adjustments. For short, medium, long, and extremely long range, they have positive modifiers. They also have an infantry indirect fire response modifier +1. Hand-to-hand combat and close assault, they have a +10 modifier. Quick march, to do quick march and avoid disruption, they need 1 through 40 rather than 1 through 50. And to recover from suppressed, they need 1 through 70 instead of 1 through 60. Special armor. A lot of units have special armor. We'll get into that as we go. AP penetration is an optional rule I'm not using. AP number of hits I am using. So the way that works is most units are normal, but you have certain units that have Q, quick fire, fast, or rapid fire. If you have any of those, you find the 2-hit number, you go across, you roll to see if there are additional hits. If there are additional hits, you can spread those out among different units within the command range of the firing unit. So it's one hex from the target unit if the command range of the firing unit is 1. Let's go look over here. And again, I built up to this. I think this is like the 5th game I played. I started with the basic version and I went very, very slow. Then I started adding more advanced rules. Then I did all the advanced rules except for, I think, the weapon sighting, some of the 1 or 2 advanced rules that I overlooked. But now we have full-on basic and advanced rules plus many of the optional rules. So I want to look up spotting and spot removal. I'll do that offline. Interesting, there's a combat effects summary if you want to, and I might be referring to this more. All right. And this just simplifies the different types of, like there's GP small arms and GP not small arms, and they all affect things differently. I'm also going to make sure I'm careful of terrain destruction. If you fire certain types of GP, you fire at buildings, you can pretty much blow them up, etc. So there's going to be, so more involved. I'm going to try to go through it a little slowly so I don't make mistakes. I think things are finally starting to get really interesting here, and I hope you continue to watch. I just thank you for being supportive and thank you for enjoying my games. And when you give me likes and when you acknowledge and you say thank you, I really, really do appreciate it. And it does mean a lot to me when people acknowledge, you know, my work and my videos. I appreciate it because I do like to share and I like to know that people are enjoying what I do. Okay, that's it for now.